Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our discussion on essential soft skills you need to succeed as an engineer. This is a lead dev webinar created in partnership with X-Team. This webinar lasts roughly 45 minutes, after which both myself and the panelists will head over to lead dev Slack to answer some of your questions in the continuous learning channel. We may also have time for a couple of questions live, so please submit those through the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we'll get them towards the end if there's time. So let's start with some intros. My name is Nate Durant, and I'll be your moderator today, and I'm a director of engineering at Pi Insurance. I'm joined by some awesome engineering leaders on our panel today who are ready to share their experiences and insights. So let's get to some intros. Maria, let's start with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria, and I am the VP of Technical Vetting at X-Team. I have a background in computer science and have worked as a software developer for most of my career. But since then, for the past 5 years, I had the chance to start working in pre-sales. And it was through this process that I got the chance to start building teams from scratch and technically vetting candidates to fill these positions. And this is how I got fascinated by the process of technically vetting candidates. And it's where I've been focusing my career for the past 5 years since then. I love to identify talent in others and help others identify their talent so they can bring opportunities to people where they can thrive.
Great. Next, Anne-Marie.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah. Awesome. Really nice to be here. Thank you, Nathan. Very quickly about me. So I'm Anna-Marie Fischer. I've been in tech for over 10 years now. I play different roles from software engineer to tech lead to senior consultant, product director. But for the past 3 years, my main focus has been to train people, train tech leads in building high-performing teams. And I also work with individuals, tech leads or engineering managers that are trying to develop their people skills in order to move to the next level in their careers or just deal with the daily struggle of dealing with people in their full-time roles. So that's pretty much it about me. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Harsha?
Hey everyone, my name is Harsha. I'm an engineering manager at Notion. I lead the mobile engineering there. Before Notion, I was with Twitter, where I was building advertising product infra as an engineering manager. And before that, I was with Facebook or Meta for close to 5 years, worked on a bunch of different products as an iOS engineer, backend engineer, tech lead manager at Messenger, Instagram, Facebook ads, etc. Glad to be with this group. I think it'll be a fun conversation.
Great. And last, Dan.
Thanks, Nate. So I'm Dan Blundell. I work as engineering director at Gymshark, based in the UK. Prior to that, I worked in some kind of heavily regulated industries. So I worked across government, healthcare, and prior to that, I worked in e-commerce agencies as a software engineer. So kind of seen on the tools, leading teams, building teams, and now going through sort of a vast scale up in the e-commerce space for Gymshark. So great to be here.
Great. So the intro's out of the way. I'd like to frame our discussion a little bit today. So soft skills in the tech industry are generally held as secondary skills for the hard engineering and technical skills of an engineer. As such, technical acumen is generally perceived as a standard measurement of an engineer's abilities. We're all here to shine light on another piece of the puzzle that makes up a great engineer. Strong soft skills can set an engineer apart from their peers. They can make up for lack of expertise in certain areas. And in such a competitive market that we're seeing today, working on soft skills and identifying those opportunities for improvements can make a strong difference in your career. Today, we hear from our excellent panel on the importance of soft skills in a technical setting and how they can elevate you on the next stage of your career. So with the framing out of the way, let's get into the questions. So starting off, each company highlights their own specific competencies for both employees and engineers. Dan, what's a common thread that you've seen as it relates to soft skills?
So I think for me, certainly the skills I look for and the things that I also see people kind of most struggle with as they move through their career tends to be how do we make sure that people continue to approach things with curiosity and a causal mindset. And I'd probably wrap that up in how early can you inject a level of leadership and ownership into someone's career as they move through. So helping people to appreciate that it doesn't matter what level you're at, you can exhibit leadership traits, leadership capabilities, leadership behaviors at a peer level, and showing up to situations in a way that says, what can I do to help the team benefit? What can I do to role model the right behaviors to get us to where we need to be? And that manifests itself as like two things. One is like this kind of continuous curiosity and inherent ownership over any given situation. I can affect change in a positive way. And the other one for me is influence. It's an area where I see people struggle the most as well. Engineers often, certainly the ones I've worked with through my career, is experience a lot of, why don't other people get it? Like, why don't they understand what I'm on about? How do I like get this thing done? And actually being able to wrap up, how do we influence people effectively from a really early stage in your career, and how at any point in your career and any point in your organization, how do you start to influence people effectively using the currency that they're dealing with? Lara Hagen does a great workshop on currencies of influence, and there's plenty of material out there on kind of how to do that well. I think the earlier people can understand the role of business and influence in the way that they kind of exert themselves within an organization, they can really benefit from.
Bree, do you have any follow-up for that?
Yes, actually, something that isn't many times mentioned as a common thread, but is a determinant factor to the success of a team is ensuring and promoting psychological safety in teams. Because teams that don't have psychological safety are teams where people often get unmotivated. And this is in relation to what Dan was just mentioning. People stop having that curiosity and that motivation that brings meaning to the work that they do. And when it comes to what psychological safety really is, it's that it doesn't really matter who is part of a team as much as how the people who belong to a team interact with each other and how they collaborate with each other. Because when you have teams that don't nurture an environment where people feel they can ask questions and they can propose ideas openly and without fear. If you don't have this, then their motivation suffers, the overall performance of the team and the innovation that team is capable of bringing forward suffers. And what we see as professionals that have stress, a lot of motivation, talented professionals who feel undervalued with limited chances of contributing positively to a project. And this is why it's so important to identify individuals in an organization who can promote these values in leadership positions, because it's their example that will serve to naturally propagate a healthy culture throughout the entire organization. So yeah, that's why I believe that psychological safety is so important.
Yeah, 100% agree there. Moving on to our next question. Harsha, can you provide examples of how strong soft skills have positively impacted your career progression or the career progression of engineers on your team?
Yeah, sure. So I think when it comes to soft skills, the soft skills that you expect from junior engineers are different from the soft skills that you expect from senior engineers, right? So I'll give you a specific example. So overall, in the industry, going from senior engineer to staff it's a pretty big jump. It's a milestone. A lot of people struggle getting to the staff level. So an example that I have from my time at Facebook and Twitter is an engineer who was like operating at the senior level for a while. And then I kind of became the manager of this team. He was really good technically. You could see it in the quality of his code. You could see it from peer feedback. All the engineers in the team went to him for technical advice, but this engineer was struggling to get to staff. And when I started digging into the peer feedback, the common thread here was in a lot of the communication across teams and with cross-functional partners, this engineer's communication style was deemed too direct. Uh, so he kind of like came across as a bit of a know-it-all, a bit rude, and because of that, like people were not willing to kind of like support him in his promotion. And if you're looking at the staff level, building that consensus, being that influence, that glue across team boundaries is so critical. So that is what we kind of, I coached this engineer on. We worked on this for like 6 months, 1 year, providing like very specific feedback as to how to improve the way you speak, the communication with cross-functional partners, not assuming that they know all the technical stuff and translating that language to what they can understand. So once he was able to kind of like bring that shift in his communication, everything else was already in place. And I think this is kind of a situation that a lot of engineers find themselves in. Like technically it's all there, but it's like those one or two soft skills that are missing and that's holding them back. So it's absolutely crucial because the more senior you go, coding becomes a less important part of your role. The soft skills, the influence you have, the problem finding that you can do becomes more important.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that a lot in my career as people hitting that barrier between senior staff. Really, the soft skills are really what holding back the leadership abilities, the communication. That's really where that could be a differentiator for people looking to make that next step. All right, Anne-Marie, have you seen any common examples of where a lack of certain soft skills have caused individuals to stagnate? And what skills did you notice were lacking?
Yeah, so one of the main common skill that I see people are lacking, that it's holding them back from advancing in their tech careers, it's actually making their work visible. That comes with a lot of things that Arsha was sharing before. So they struggle to communicate properly what they're working on or their progress or bringing others into their journey of growth, right? So that might even mean like the way they present the work, even identifying opportunities for presenting their work, taking extra ownership, or networking, connecting with the right people that is going to help them to make their work visible or advocate for them, right? So I think that all of these kind of are interconnected. I think it's impossible to just focus at one skill. I think that's the pain and the beauty of the soft skills or the people skills, that they are kind of interconnected. So the moment you start on one, you're gonna have an impact on like, we're humans, right? You're gonna have an impact on everything that you do. But I think it starts there. Like they struggle a lot with understanding on how to keep people on their journey and making their work visible. They focus a lot on different skills, like Arsha was saying, or like the technical skills, or like really focus on doing a great job. But unfortunately, they just expect for people to see it. They hope that because they are putting in so much effort, people will just see it and give them the reward for it. And unfortunately, that's not the case. We are very busy, and I think it's our responsibility, and the beauty is we have the control to help others see the work we're doing instead of just waiting or putting it on them to recognize it. So yeah, that's my take on it.
I've actually given that advice to new leaders that I've had within an organization where to be able to highlight themselves and being able to promote themselves as a new leader, because even for me as a director, I don't do stand-ups as you do with a manager to an IC relationship every day, right? So there's more of a need for people to promote themselves, highlight the things that they're working on, because the further up you go, the more the disconnect there is between, yourself and your leader. So something for everyone to think about. All right. So we've heard a couple of common examples among our experiences as technical companies. Maria, working in the technical recruiting space, you see and interact with a diverse candidate pool, both in level and experience. What would you highlight as key soft skills that you've seen that sets a candidate apart?
I would say communication, and this is very much related to what Anne-Marie was just mentioning. Communication is a mend or break factor that affects everyday team interactions the most, especially in today's remote work environment where you have highly distributed teams and you have people that are working for very different places, not in an office. So it's harder for people to show their work. So you have that, for example, on any given day, also software engineers need to communicate with different people, with team members, with stakeholders, end users of the solution they're building. And also all of these actors, they have different technical knowledge. So it means that people really need to be able to clearly articulate concepts while they also vary their jargon, their technical jargon that they use. Because what might be obvious to a direct peer might not be so obvious for someone else. And there is also the fact that software projects are communication intensive. You have, for example, daily stand-ups if the team has them, where you have that each engineer has to promote their work. They need to express the progress they've been able to achieve in the tasks that have been assigned to them. You have also code reviews where developers need to learn how to give feedback to other engineers and to also receive feedback as well. And then you also have very interesting interactions, like, for example, within the quality assurance team, where you have that engineers submit their work and they have a team of people that all of a sudden send over like a list of errors or faults in their work. So they need to also, be able to receive that feedback without taking it personally. So all these interactions are very different from each other. And this is why it's important for an engineer to practice active listening, to also develop an ability to communicate clearly with respect and empathy towards others, again, without taking things personally. And I think that one way where I find that interviewers can have a strong sense of a person's communication abilities is when we ask someone to introduce themselves and we ask them to summarize their professional background. Because what is curious here is that you can see how people talk about their past experience, about their present work, and also about their future aspirations. They need to communicate that clearly. And something that's really interesting in this question is to observe how someone talks about themselves and also how they talk about other people they usually work with. Because this gives the interviewer also additional insights as to the type of work culture that they have been exposed to, or also the work culture that they favor. So in a nutshell, I would say that communication is one of the most important skills that an engineer can develop.
Awesome. Thanks, Maria. Dan, any follow-up to that?
Yeah, there's a thing Maria mentioned. I was like, we've not touched on this yet, and it's sort of glossed over as something I think that was actually really important around the self-awareness part. So communication being an ability to kind of express ourselves, but also consume information from kind of what's going on around us. But I also think a lot of that ability to communicate and consume information well and actively listen and these kinds of skills that all relate to good communication really anchor on people's understanding of themselves. What am I good at? What am I challenged by? What am I working on? What impact do I have on the people around me? How does my tone actually get reflected? What is my intent, and does that come across? Hersha just shared a link in response to one of the questions around intent versus impact, and kind of what did you intend to do versus how it came across. And very often I think we anchor on communication as the open demonstration of that. An awful lot of it comes from your self-awareness as well, as like how are you able to reflect on and encourage and receive feedback. And again, that's another aspect of, I think, as you move through your career, you get a lot of feedback as a junior. People are constantly telling you, like, improve on this, work on this, and you kind of have that almost naive curiosity, which is really healthy and helpful. It trains you really well. And then you sort of get trained out of that habit as you become more senior, because people think you should know everything. We all know, of course, seniors know everything, so that's fine. And everyone gets really comfortable with that idea that it feels really awkward and difficult. And then you move to more senior roles again, and just everyone stops giving you feedback because they think, well, surely you don't need that, or what does this guy know, or how does this work? And you again have to flip those skills as well to say, well, my self-awareness tells me that it's really important to me and I respond well to this kind of feedback, or I need to go and find different ways of encouraging that, different ways of driving those sorts of things out of people and finding the new layer to what I didn't know about myself. and actually people stop telling you things that you should be aware of yourself. So that kind of cycle of making sure you're reflecting on how you conduct yourself, how you communicate, the impact you have, and is that in line with your intent? So if your intentions and the way you conduct yourself are really, really aligned, people have a good experience working with you. And I think that's actually where you generate this momentum of a great reputation, of someone that people want to engage with, and making sure that your intent and how you behave is truly aligned. So that comes from starting inside how you see yourself and that perception, and making sure that feedback's always there for you, no matter what layer you go through.
No, that's a great follow-up, Dan. So just wanted to give a quick reminder for everyone to, if you have any questions for our panel today, feel free to leverage the Zoom Q&A feature, and we'll try to get through a few questions here at the end. And if we can't get through them all, we will be in Slack answering any follow-ups as well after the panel today. So kind of coming back to you, Anne-Marie, what's a common technique that you've seen used by an engineer, or that an engineer can take to improve their soft skills, whether that's the communication, the self-awareness, what have you, and what specifically around the communication and engagement piece?
Yeah, so this is a question that I get a lot from people, mostly the people that I'm working with. And the strategy that I'm going to share with you, it's actually the strategy that I use every day to help people develop these skills. I see there's a question about books and course recommendation for improving soft skills. I'm going to share, I have a long list, so I'm going to share it with you later on the Slack channel, so you can refer to it, because I think this disappeared. So coming back to the strategy, my answer always starts with start anywhere. So when it comes about soft skills or people skills, it's important to just find one thing that currently it's not working. You struggle with feedback, start there. You struggle with alignment in your team, or making your work visible, or communication, as it was before in Arsha's example, start there. So that's the first step. Second, it's about making a change. Obviously, what you're currently doing, it's not working. So it's about changing the strategy, adding something new or removing something from your current approach or process in order to get to the point where you can see the impact of that. And the third step, which is reflection. So once you've applied that strategy or that change into your process, it's about understanding how did that impacted people around you. So that's through your self-reflection and understanding, how did I feel? How did it work out? Did I get a different result or not? But also through feedback. So emphasizing on what Dan was sharing just before, feedback, it's a complement, like a complementary technique to your gut feeling into exactly how my behavior actually came across. Did I achieve what I wanted to achieve? Because we can fool ourselves sometimes, and we might not be right based on what we're noticing. So combining that reflection process together with feedback, it's what's going to allow us to understand what works for us and what not. It's very possible that the technique we're trying, it's not working, but I think that's a step forward, because it shows us by reducing options, we're actually moving forward. It shows us, okay, what's not working, and that we need to change the strategy. Which brings me to the fourth point, which is the last one also, which comes in regards to adapting. So based on the learnings that you had, based on the feedback, you're continuously adapting your style and your behavior to change your skills and to have the impact that you want to have. So, I mean, the process that I'm describing is the process of continuous improvement. It's nothing, there's nothing new about it. But I think the beauty of it is that, as I mentioned before, we are humans. So all of these skills, they are tied together. Wherever we start, if we start with, Maria mentioned listening, if we start with paying more attention to people around us and talking less and listening more and more actively, that's going to affect the way we do feedback, because we're going to know more about people, how they want the feedback to be delivered, what do they need, what are their growth plans. So the feedback is going to go in line with that. If we develop our feedback, also our empathy is going to have an impact. So they are all related, and that's the beauty. Wherever you start, you're going to slowly go into that process. Now, I just want to set the expectations straight. This is this is not easy, right? It's uncomfortable going out of that comfort zone and making this change, but it's definitely worth it because you're like Harsha shared a very good example. You're gonna grow into your role, but also you're gonna like it more. Your job and people around you are gonna appreciate it for it. So I think that's it.
Wonderful. That's the continuous learning, the continuous improvement, right? That's why we're all here. That's why we all take kind of our listening on these sessions, and being able to apply that to the soft skills is really key. Dan, what role does mentorship and coaching play in enhancing soft skills of software engineers? And how do you facilitate those opportunities within your organization?
Or we try at every level. I think on a personal note, there's some techniques that hopefully answer some of the questions in the chat as well, around how do we make sure we kind of distinguish different layers of feedback and kind of when mentoring is appropriate, when coaching is appropriate, and kind of somewhere in between as well. Because very often we might set out, well, we have this kind of rhetoric around mentoring is appropriate here and coaching is appropriate here, but very often you kind of end up flitting between depending on the situation as well. There may be certain situations where you kind of need to embrace both, might go in with intention. But we try and encourage, certainly from a leadership and from a management angle, to begin more so with coaching to kind of support and empower people through solving their own problems and giving them a little bit more agency and control over their own kind of destiny, over like how they're going to execute on something. It's kind of leadership trait and behavior that we might stack, try coaching first over mentoring, but be aware of the difference between both. Equally, I think creating separate spaces for specific activities. So I recently worked with someone in my team who was like, I've got challenges with this particular individual. So we created a separate session outside of one-to-ones as an explicit coaching session. He said, can you coach me on this particular situation? Actually having that distinction where it wasn't just rolled into a one-to-one, it was like a completely separate conversation specifically about a topic, and can you coach me to do something like through this situation? It was a really wonderful way. It kind of creates that rules of engagement. Like they're much more explicit about like, this is the purpose of this time and this is how we're going to do it. But I think that rolls all the way through to more, how do you create, back to the psychological safety, how do you actually move from having these distinct areas where you mentor and you're coach or you're encouraging people to do so, you actually get deeper into how do you encourage and embrace continuous feedback in healthy ways, and being able to kind of get to the end of a session and having a good enough relationship with either your peers, your team, your reports, your manager, to be able to say, can I give you a quick bit of feedback on the conversation we just had, or the meeting we just had, or what I just observed over here. And actually, if you build trust and build safety in those relationships enough, being able to distinguish things like, I think you're a wonderful human, that doesn't change, but this piece of work wasn't great, and here's why, becomes much easier conversations. It's actually the kindest thing to do as well. You're not kind of conflating these two things about your relationship with the individual and the feedback you've got. The more trust and the more safety you can build, the more continuous feedback you can give, and actually the more opportunities you get to practice it. And that goes for every single level. I've had and seen and worked with junior engineers, people that transit, like kind of shifted careers and come from one area of the business to another, who've still been able to do this even early in their career, through to the more senior directors in businesses who are able to do that. So I think knowing where to choose mentor and coaching, but equally trying to actually aim to go past that as well, and make it a daily part of your kind of rituals and habits in the way that you interact with people, takes conscious effort as an individual. Just applying the effort and finding those opportunities to do that as well.
Great. Do you have, for people looking for mentorships, Dan, do you have any recommendations on how people can find those mentors within their organization?
I think so. We had a wonderful situation the other week where a couple of engineers had just started their own peer-to-peer kind of opportunity. They literally threw together an internal like Google form on when anyone that wants mentoring, like just tell us the topics, and that was just a completely emergent pattern. Lead Dev Slack like own promo here. Like if people are not on the lead dev side, there's loads of incredible individuals there that again you can reach outside of your organization if you've seen their work and seen their things to do. Just starting that relationship. I've yet to see people turn those opportunities down. It's actually a real honor and a real privilege to kind of say, I've seen this piece of work. I like what you do. I've got a problem in a similar space. Would you just take a little bit of time to help me understand it? I think actually being very specific about what you want help with is an important part of that as well. But again, I've seen mentoring programs come out of just emergent things within teams who just go, I've got a problem, I can solve it, and I can go and put something in place to make that happen. It was absolutely fantastic to see.
Awesome. Yeah, agreed. I've just seen them pop up. My organization now has a formal one where people can sign up. I've signed up on both sides, both the mentor and mentee. So seeing the more formal side, but like you said, lead dev Slack, other just finding those partners, finding previous coworkers, whatever. We all have like the little alumni Slack groups that we sit in, right? Finding lots of different avenues to find those mentorships.
For sure.
So we're gonna look. We got some good questions. Good questions in our Q&A. Before I ask our panelists for some last minute tips. So I'm gonna start with a question from James today. He says, I have a military background and I find myself in corporate environments where directness is not exactly seen the same. What questions can I ask myself, or what tools can I use to make sure what I'd like to say is received in a soft way, especially when communicating with remote work is often over text? Harsha, you talked a little bit about directness previously in your question where you coach someone on that. Would you want to take this question?
Yeah, sure. So I think the idea is not that you should not be direct, but you should be both direct and kind at the same time. And that's challenging, right? So like some things that I've seen work well for me is instead of telling people what to do, like let's say you're a staff engineer or a senior engineer and you're trying to guide junior engineers who are looking to grow themselves, right, into senior engineering role. Instead of telling them this is what you should do, which can be a bit too directive, you frame it as a question and help them arrive at the answer through a series of conversations. So a more tactical example here is, let's say you're looking at, you're in a design meeting with other engineers, and you completely think that the way the API interface is designed is really bad. You could say this is bad, we shouldn't do this, which is kind of like maybe a bit too direct. Or you could frame it as a series of questions. Hey, did we think about using GraphQL instead? Did we think about making this query parameter do something different? So you kind of like structure it as conversations and ask questions and still kind of arrive at the principle or the design that you have in mind. So I think that's one way. And then, I mean, sometimes it's okay. You will make mistakes. So just having that degree of self-reflection and introspection, and if things happen, just going and apologizing to the other person also goes a long way. So I think like these are two things that I've used personally. Being less directive when you're dealing with more senior folks and asking questions instead. And then, kind of like giving yourself some grace and some room for error once in a while.
Great. We have another question. Oh, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Very quickly on this one, because I actually got the feedback that I'm too honest at some point in my development as a leader. So if it helps some way I tackled it, once was starting to be more vulnerable. So sharing more with people when I don't know something or when I'm afraid of jumping into an opportunity, that kind of helped me be more in touch with where people are, being more empathetic. And it reduced a little bit of the way that I was coming across, because I was doing it because of fear or trying to stay up to some expectation that I set up for myself. They weren't real. And so by just starting to play more with vulnerability, I realized that I just woke myself up into a place where things were smoother and people could see my other side. So they can kind of combine my strong approach with this other vulnerable side, and it made it easier for me. So hopefully that helps.
No, that's a great follow-up. Thank you. So we have a good question from anonymous attendee. When it comes to soft skills, I've experienced often the struggle of making my voice heard at the table. Do you have any advice on improving the balance of soft skills within a team to ensure everyone's voices is heard and there is equality and opinions being brought to the table? Maria, do we want to try to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So this is something that in order to promote this type of attitude, I strongly feel that it has to also be promoted from the leadership. Because if you have leaders that give equal opportunities to people, that open up discussions, even when you see that someone isn't really, for example, sharing ideas or contributing, just giving them a chance to speak up and say, you know, what do you feel? Do you think that this is a good idea? Would you do the same? Given those opportunities, I think that really changes that. It does a significant shift in the culture of teams. I find that it is very easy to perhaps have people who are, strong technically and that also have a very extroverted personality to often be the people that take the lead, and everyone kind of just follows. And sometimes managers don't give opportunities to others to kind of also have their voices heard. So I think that this is something that really has to be promoted at for example, for technical leaders or for project managers to give this space during different meetings where you have the entire team and promote this really, because if this is not promoted, it's very difficult to bring this culture to a team. I think that it's important for someone to, if they want to participate, to at least try different ways to generate bonds with their peers, to try to speak up in meetings. If you see that that is not working, perhaps sharing ideas either through a pitch or a document to someone else in your team and getting some feedback on that. And if your peers see that you want to contribute and you have things to contribute, that can slowly perhaps also help you do that shift. But also it needs to be something that needs to be worked as a team. Everyone needs to contribute to this culture, because basically leaders should lead by example. So if you have if an organization has values that they want to reinforce and promote on a company level, they need to choose to promote the right people that will embody these values and promote them. And that is how you can get in an organization teams that are where psychological safety and equal participation is ubiquitous.
Yeah, agreed. It really starts with the leadership side. Dan, do you have a follow-up on this one?
I think more so than anything else, just an explicit appeal to everyone on this webinar and anyone that kind of follows up and watches it in future is what Maria just said. Like, if you are a leader in a team, you have people like the person that asked this question in your team and around you. So if you can be that sponsor, that champion, go find those people and use your privileged status opportunity to create space for them and find ways to do that gracefully and with support and with encouragement and creating that space for that to happen. Because if you don't get out of the way and you don't kind of show your ability to use your kind of power for good, then opportunities like this get missed, voices like this gets missed for no good reason other than the fact that we're just repeating patterns. So take that as kind of a little thing on board. It'll practice your own soft skills on like, how do I do that with elegance and with grace and in the best way for people who need that space creating, and also how you then encourage them and support them with the skills they can do to take up that space in other rooms that you're not in. And I think if we can do more of that, as Maria said, like as leaders in those spaces, we'll all be in a much better position because we're getting the opportunity to practice that well, and we're building a support network through it to make sure that those are executed in a way that's meaningful and honest and authentic. And that will absolutely help rooms like that and absolutely help more voices in that space as well. Wonderful.
No, that's a great takeaway for all of our leaders on the call. Thank you, Dan. So as we start to wrap this up, for our panel, any last minute advice you have for engineers listening on ways to improve their soft skills for their career progression? And let's start with you, Maria.
Okay. I would suggest that people make the most out of the opportunities they face on an average day to practice skills that they feel less confident in. So, for example, peer programming sessions, they're a good way to practice giving feedback to others. If you feel that you struggle doing this is a good opportunity for you to practice it every day. Then you have daily meetings that serve as a good opportunity to practice your presentation skills if this is something that you struggle. And you also have planning meetings, which are a good opportunity as well to bounce ideas off with others. And these are only a few examples, but whatever you do, I would suggest that you always remember to contribute towards a positive environment. If you practice active listening, if you treat others with respect, you're going to be an example that others will want to follow, and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah, 100% agree. Any thoughts, Harsha?
Yeah, I think soft skills is like a pretty complex topic. So I would say pick one area that you want to focus on. So it could be your verbal communication skills, it could be your written communication skills, or it could be the ability to find problems. And especially for folks who are in this panel, kind of listening to this and are on the more senior side, I think being on the lookout for areas of optimizations within the team, within the company, identifying those problems, then proposing solutions, getting influence and buy-in. That's how you unlock the next level of growth. And in some cases, you don't have to do it all alone. Maybe you find the problem, then you partner with somebody who you think has better communication skills, and both of you work together and unlock that area of growth for the company, that opportunity, optimization, etc. So yeah, I mean, it takes time. And I think like all of us in the panel are learning as well. It's a continuous journey. Not like any of us are experts at soft skills, but just kind of like sharing the lessons that we have.
No, that's a great call out. Anne Marie, any last thoughts?
So actually I had the same idea as Maria. That I think I see it's a trend there to just use your current environment to find opportunities to grow instead of just waiting for them to come up. But if I would be to add another one, would be to find an ally, someone that can help you in this journey, because I think it's not an easy journey. So you can call it a mentor, a sponsor, or a friend, or someone that is there that can build up some accountability for you, and can help you in this process. I really think it makes the road easier. So I think that would be from my side.
Yeah, I mean, Dan already gave us some great tips on finding a good mentor, so it kind of lines up. Dan, any last advice?
No, it's very simply what Anne-Marie said. Genuinely, like, go find people to support you with it, because again, great practice mechanism, it'll build up relationships, and you'll also get to a place of much more kind of honest exchanges with individuals who are there in the same space with you. And I think you'll get a lot further that way. So yeah, they've absolutely covered it. It's been great.
Yeah, and I think one area that I'll highlight too, and it's something that I personally use even in my own soft skill growth, is just getting out of that comfort zone, right? Finding those things that make you uncomfortable is how you're going to grow, is how you're going to learn. And communication, for example, is a big one that some people aren't as comfortable with it, and finding those areas and those opportunities, working with a mentor, working with your leaders, communicating your leaders, understanding what they see, and being able to align that with where you want to go will really help you. Having more people looking out for those opportunities for you to improve your soft skills are always kind of two heads are better than one type of mentality. So always keep that in mind. So we've touched on a lot of different topics on how soft skills are viewed, both in kind of the corporate and the recruiting environments. So our panel has given you a lot of different perspectives on how to view the soft skills. So I hope the conversation today will help you all understand the importance of these skills in your technical careers. So just want to thank you so much for all the good insights in today's panel. We'll be heading over to the Lead Dev Slack and the continuous learning channel. So please head over there and continue the discussion. We'll be pulling in some of the questions that we weren't able to answer live. But if other people have other questions they want to ask our panel today, feel free to drop them in that channel. And we thank you all for joining and hope to see you next time.